What? Jacob froze. The rush of blood to his head due to the shock made him a bit dizzy. He quickly snapped out of it and asked, "What's the situation?"
I called an ambulance, but it is not here yet,
Uncle James said anxiously. "Sam, take my books to the room for me." Jacob stood up and rushed out of the classroom. The teacher watched Jacob sweep past him with a blank expression. He didn't even get a chance to react. He only registered what had happened after Jacob was gone. Students nowadays are so rude. They are so audacious that they think they can leave the classroom in the middle of class without giving any explanation to the teacher, he thought. As he spoke on the phone, Jacob dashed out of the building towards the main gate of the school. "Uncle James, don't panic. Did you call the hospital close to the cottage and ask them to pick up Grandma?"
I can't find their number.
Uncle James sounded extremely agitated. Cursing silently at his uncle's clumsiness, Jacob dashed out of the school's main gate and tried to get a cab. Since the school was in the suburbs and it was almost 8 o'clock at night, there weren't a lot of cabs in the area. He kept standing there, but every cab that passed him was either booked or not taking passengers. He kept talking to Uncle James all the time, even while finding a cab. The minutes kept ticking by, and every second felt longer than an eternity. Jacob seriously considered running down all the way home to his grandma. Nothing was more important to Jacob than her, and all this waiting was turning his head into mush. Adding to his misery, he also had to calm Uncle James down so that he could gather his wits and take care of Grandma till Jacob reached her. In all the distress, he saw a red car driving past him and suddenly remembered the dashing sight of Helen's red. "Helen!" thought Jacob, as an idea struck him like a bolt of lightning. "Uncle James, I'll hang up now as I need to call for help. Call me if the situation changes." Jacob ended the call and fumbled through his contact list. He quickly found Helen's number and dialed it without hesitating. When Jacob accompanied Sophie to the top of the mountain on the weekend trip with her family, Helen gave him her number in case of an emergency. He was grateful that she did. Usually, he wouldn't bother Sophie's parents. They were his in-laws, after all. But this was an emergency. His parents were still abroad. The only people Jacob could think of now were Sophie's parents. The phone was ringing and ringing, but there was no answer. Jacob's hands were starting to sweat because of all the tension.
Hello?
The call connected, and Helen's gentle voice came through the phone. "Helen, it's me!" Jacob shouted urgently.
Oh, Jacob, it's you. Why didn't you come here and tutor Sophie today? I was going to call you to ask you about it,
Helen said. He had already informed Sophie that he couldn't tutor today because of his class, but he had no time to explain that to Helen. He said, urgently, "It's my grandma. She—" He choked up. He couldn't get himself to say out loud that his grandma needed to go to the hospital.
What happened? Don't panic, Jacob. Tell me everything.
Sensing the pain in Jacob's voice, Helen was alarmed. "My grandma fainted due to high blood pressure and she needs to be taken to the hospital." Before explaining the situation, Jacob exhaled and cleared his throat.
Give me the address and I'll go over there now,
Helen said immediately. Jacob somehow gave her his address, his voice barely audible. His heart was lodged in his throat, and his arm holding the phone shook violently. "Okay, I'll be there soon. We will keep in touch. I need you to calm down a little. Your grandmother will be absolutely fine," Helen said, encouragingly, hoping her words would comfort him a little. Lowering the phone from his ear, Jacob just stood there at the main gate of the school. He didn't know what to do next. The road ahead was dark. The only light present was coming from the headlights of the cars that passed him every once in a while. As he was blankly staring at the road, his phone vibrated. Jacob immediately answered it and heard Drakon's deep voice.
"Are you at school? I'm on my way and will pick you up at the gate in about 10 minutes.
Jacob just said, "Okay," and the phone call ended. He stood on the empty spot in front of the main gate, feeling the cold wind sweep through his shirt. But he didn't care about the cold. He just needed to make sure that everything would be fine. After a few excruciating minutes, a black stopped in front of Jacob. Drakon stuck his face out the window and said, "Get in the car. We can wait for the news at home." Nodding numbly, Jacob got in the car and found that Sophie was also sitting inside. She looked at Jacob with concern. She had been worried about him and had come to pick him up with her father. She immediately held his stone-cold hand and let him feel the warmth of hers. She intertwined her fingers between his, offering comfort, but his face remained expressionless, like a robot. Drakon started the car and drove back home in a matter of minutes. Pale-faced, Jacob sat in the car and thought for a while before asking Drakon, "How did Helen get there?" "She drove," Drakon answered. Jacob was a little disappointed since he had expected Helen to use her superpower and fly there. It would have been faster. As if reading his mind, Drakon continued, "Don't worry. It doesn't take any longer for Helen to drive there than to fly. We have a lot of restrictions on flying. If she encounters an inspector, a lot of time will be wasted on answering questions. Besides, if she flew there, she wouldn't have been able to bring your grandma to the hospital." "Right," Jacob said, grateful for Sophie and her family's assistance and presence of mind. They really came through in his time of need. He just hoped that his grandma was okay. When they reached home, Drakon parked the car and escorted Jacob and Sophie into the house. The cozy and familiar setting slightly calmed Jacob's agitated nerves. He took out his mobile phone and called home again. Uncle James answered the call and immediately started talking very fast before Jacob could even get a word out.
"A woman just arrived and claimed to be your friend. She gave first aid to your grandma and carried her into a car. She drove away just now, and I was so frazzled that I forgot to even ask her name,"
Uncle James told him, saying all of it in a single breath. "Yes, I know her. Don't worry. Calm down, Uncle James. Everything will be fine," said Jacob, and hung up the phone. He didn't want to offer any comfort to the man because he was really frustrated with him, but he did it anyway. Well, I must remember to never depend on him again, Jacob thought. Uncle James panicked when Jacob's grandma got sick. He couldn't find the hospital's phone number and didn't know how to deal with the crisis. He needed Jacob, who was far away at college, to direct him, and he didn't even ask for the stranger's name before letting her take Jacob's grandma away. Jacob kept getting angrier as he thought of him. He decided that it was unsafe to let Uncle James continue taking care of his grandma by himself. Jacob also mentally himself for not being able to help his grandma when she was in danger. He looked up at the clock with a frown on his face. Helen reached Grandma's house in just 20 minutes. That was super fast. Drakon and Sophie sat together with Jacob in the living room. Nobody talked, but he knew they were there for him. They all sat, anxiously waiting to hear from Helen. About 20 minutes later, the phone in the living room rang, abrupting everyone's thoughts. Drakon picked up the phone and listened patiently. He turned to Jacob and informed him, "Helen has reached the hospital with your grandma, and she is being treated. The doctor said she would be fine." Jacob finally felt like he could breathe again.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.